Hello, how you guys doing? James here. Hope you're doing having a good day. Well, um, I'm gonna make a short video. Shout out to Tareen and these other content creators for. Here's a story about why black people deserve reparations, and he did a series about a year or so ago. So from his channel.
What's going on, everybody? And welcome to episode 21 of The Black where today I will be talking about the Ocoee Massacre of 1920. The Ocoee Massacre was a mass racial violence event that saw a white mob attack numerous black residents in the northern parts of Ocoee, Florida, a town located in Orange County near Orlando. The massacre took place on November 2nd, 1920, the day of the U.S. presidential election. By most estimates, a total of 30 to 35 black people were killed in the violence. Most black-owned buildings and residences in northern Ocoee were burned to the ground. Other blacks living in southern Ocoee were later killed or driven out of town by the threat of further violence being used against them. Thus, Ocoee essentially became an all-white or sundown town. The massacre has been described as the single bloodiest day in modern American political history. The attack was intended to prevent black citizens from voting. Black people had essentially been disenfranchised in Florida since the beginning of the 20th century. In Ocoee and across the state, various black organizations have been conducting voter registration drives for a year. In November 1920, Mose Norman, a prosperous black farmer, tried to vote but was turned away twice on election day. Norman was among those working on the voter drive. A white mob surrounded the home of Julius July Perry, where Norman was thought to have taken refuge. After Perry drove away the white mob with gunshots, killing 2 men and wounding one who tried to break into his house, the mob called for reinforcements from Orlando and Orange County. The mob laid waste to the black community in northern Ocoee and eventually killed Perry. They took his body to Orlando and hanged him from a light post to intimidate other black people. Norman escaped, never to be found. Hundreds of other blacks fled the town, leaving behind their homes and possessions. Most of the people living in Ocoee don't even know that this happened there, said Pamela Schwartz, chief curator of the Orange County Regional History Center, which sponsored an exhibit on it. For almost a century, many descendants of survivors were not aware of the massacre that occurred in their hometown. Orange County, as well as the rest of Florida, have been politically dominated by Southern white Democrats, also known as Dixiecrats, since the end of Reconstruction. But in the weeks leading up to the presidential election of 1920, blacks throughout the South were registering to vote in record numbers. At the same time, the Ku Klux Klan was experiencing a revival and had established many new chapters since 1915. 3 weeks before Election Day, the KKK warned the black community that not a single Negro would be permitted to vote. Judge John Moses Chaney, a Republican running for the United States Senate from Florida, had started a voter registration campaign to register blacks to vote in Florida because they had supported the Republican Party since Reconstruction. Mose Norman and July Perry, both prosperous black landowners in Ocoee, led the local voter registration efforts in Orange County, paying the poll tax for those who could not afford it. In an effort to preserve white one-party rule, the Ku Klux Klan marched in full regalia through the streets of Jacksonville, Daytona, and Orlando to intimidate opponents. The organization threatened Judge Chaney prior to the election. Sam Salisbury was a police chief in Orlando, Florida. A native of New York, Salisbury served in the U.S. military and was known as Colonel Sam Salisbury. A white supremacist and a member of the Ku Klux Klan, Salisbury bragged about his involvement in the violent oppression and intimidation of blacks attempting to vote in the previous 1920 election. He was one of the leaders of the events leading up to the Ocoee Massacre. He was injured in an attack he led on July Perry's home in Ocoee. Blacks were met with resistance from the white community when they attempted to vote on Election Day. Poll workers challenged whether black voters were really registered. The voters had to prove they were registered by appearing before the notary public, R.C. Bigelow, who was regularly sent on fishing trips so that he was impossible to find. However, blacks, including Mose Norman, persisted but were pushed and shoved away from the polls. Norman contacted Judge John Chaney, who told him that interference with voting was illegal and told him to write the names of the blacks who were denied their constitutional rights, as well as the names of the whites who were violating them. Norman later returned to the polling place in Ocoee with a shotgun. Whether the shotgun was taken from Norman is not entirely clear, but whites at the polls drove off Norman using his own shotgun. The white community began to form a mob and paraded up and down the streets, growing more disorderly and unmanageable. The rest of the blacks gave up on trying to vote and left the polling place. Later during the evening, Sam Salisbury, the former chief of police of Orlando, was called to lead a lynch mob to find and punish Mose Norman. He later proudly bragged about his part in the events. The white mob was on its way to Norman's home when someone informed him that their target had been seen at the home of July Perry. The mob, by then numbering about 100 men, arrived at Perry's home demanding that Perry and Norman surrender. When they received no answer, they attempted to break down the front door. Perry, who had been warned about the mob, fired gunshots from inside the home in self-defense. Exactly how many people were defending the house is uncertain. The whites estimated that there were several armed blacks. Zora Neale Hurston wrote that Perry had defended his home alone. Sam Salisbury knocked the back door open and was shot in the arm, becoming the first white casualty. Two other whites, veterans Elmer McDaniels and Leo Borgard, were killed when they also tried to enter through the back door. Their bodies were found hours later in the backyard. The white mob withdrew and put out a call for reinforcements to whites in Orlando, Apopka, and Orange County, either calling them by phone or sending them by car. During the 2 to 3 hour lull, while the whites were recruiting other men, July Perry, injured in the conflict, attempted to flee with the help of his wife into a cane patch. He was found by the white mob at dawn and arrested.
Let me stop interrupt right before I go back. So who started it? It was the white people, right? Or they're the ones at that time. Aren't they the savages? Trying to do what's right, trying to be an equal citizen. This is American history that they don't want to talk about, that they try to get rid out of the museums, they try to get rid out of schools, because this is what they've done. This is back in 1920.
After Perry was treated at a hospital for his wounds, he was taken by a white mob from a vehicle while being transferred to jail. They lynched him and left his body hanging from a telephone post beside the highway. Norman was never found. Much of the trouble was attributed to outsiders from Winter Garden in Orlando. With reinforcements, the white mob took the conflict to the rest of the black community in northern Ocoee. The white paramilitary forces surrounded the northern Ocoee black community and laid siege to it. They set fire to rows of black houses. Those inside were forced to flee, and many were shot by whites. At least 20 buildings were burned in total, including every black church, schoolhouse, and lodge room in the vicinity. Black residents fought back in an evening-long gunfight lasting until as late as 4:45 a.m. Their firearms later found in the ruins after the massacre ended. Eventually, black residents were driven into the nearby orange groves and swamps, forced to retreat until they were driven out of town. The fleeing sought refuge in the surrounding woods or in the neighboring towns of Winter Garden and Apopka, which had substantial populations of black people. The siege of Ocoee claimed numerous black victims. Lang Maid, a black carpenter, was beaten and castrated. Maggie Ginlack and her pregnant daughter died while hiding in her home. Their bodies were found partially burned underneath it. Roosevelt Barton, a black hiding in July Perry's barn, was shot after the mob set fire to the barn and forced him to flee. Hattie Smith was visiting her pregnant sister-in-law in Ocoee when her sister-in-law's home was set on fire. Smith fled, but her sister-in-law's family was killed while they hid and waited for help that never came. The black residents of southern Ocoee, while not direct victims of the massacre, were later threatened into leaving. Annie Hemmeter, a black woman residing in southern Ocoee, sometimes referred to as Mrs. J.H. Hemmeter, suspected that the massacre was planned so that whites could seize the property of prosperous blacks for nothing. According to Hemmeter, people in southern Ocoee were coerced by the threat of being shot and burned out if they did not sell out and leave. About 500 black people in total were rapidly driven out of Ocoee. resulting in its population being nearly all white. That fall, white residents had to work to harvest the citrus crop because black laborers had fled the region. No black residents had settled there again until 61 years later in 1981. July Perry's body was found riddled with bullets and swinging on a telephone pole post by the highway, according to the Chicago Defender. His body was left near a sign reading, "This is what we do to niggers that vote." Another source has said he was hanged near the home of a judge who supported the black voter franchise. A local photographer was selling photos of Perry's body.
That's how barbaric America was. And then, you ever wondering why the hurricanes hit in Florida? Because there was never truly injustice for this. That's why when all the major hurricanes that hit in those areas, like Helene, that was a devastation. The Bible, it comes to the next generation. You know how sin and iniquity visit. That's why it wiped out in them different areas of Florida. This is the reason why. Some of their ancestors have to pay because what they done, and they never make retribution or reparation. This is the reason why black people say this, and they still won't refuse it. So guess what? The hurricanes will continue. Natural disaster will continue. Right now, Florida is getting harder to even live in Florida because of the virus situation. Even though it's a beautiful state, but it's under a curse because of this.
So he's talking about creating scarcity, the idea, and not just the idea, but the environment of scarcity among people who are dependent upon you. So first, understanding that black people are already in a subservient position. Black people are already in a position where they have been physically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically dominated by Europeans, by white people. And so now that black people are in this position to where they depend on white people can further divide black people. Because, yeah, we're dependent on black people, but black people at this point are depending on white people, but black people still have a sense of community, still have a sense of self. Black people are still working together to a point, but we need to break this down and divide this. We need to divide this group of people, because further divided, we can further conquer this group of people. We can further keep this group of people down. So while we have you all dependent on us, we're creating scarcity. So using the analogy he was using, you have 40 people, and you give them enough food for 20 people. So they got two options. You can either fight over that food, or they can share the food so all 40 people can eat. But in an environment where scarcity is created, and in an environment where people aren't really looking at each other as a group, fighting, like he said, fighting will ensue. What you think about that?
No, we've seen it play out, in concept and in practice, and with regards to food and other things. We were talking about food deserts a couple of years back on the Freedom Train, and that's still something that's very much going on in the black community, is food deserts, where black people in America don't have places to get food within their community. They have to go to other communities, or they, go grocery shopping at convenience stores, and you paying more for that. But then, even in addition to that, we look at the continent of Africa. There's a food shortage going on right now because the continent imports most of its food from outside sources. Two of the largest being Russia and Ukraine, who are engaged in a war right now. So there's something to think about there, where even if you break that down even further, yes, there are only 5 nations in Africa that actually import food. But they're 5 of the biggest nations in Africa, and the 5 of them together combine to import more food than the rest of the country produces and exports. The rest of the continent produces and exports. So there again, you have this idea of creating an environment of scarcity. And you got to remember too, Africa has the most arable land the most farmable land in theory on the planet, and being able to divide and conquer, and being able to take over more natural resources through the division and the turmoil and the confusion and the hostility and the aggression that's created. So we see that playing out all over the world, including right here in the United States on a daily basis. Another example would be the PPP loans. Not the way people are thinking about it, but there was a limited amount of supply for PPP loans. And there was a lot of confusion and a lot of scarcity created around those, getting your stuff in. And a lot of people did a lot of things they weren't supposed to do. And a lot of people are now facing the repercussions of that. But we're not talking about the extended or long-term or secondhand effects of all of that on the black community.
Right.
It's something to consider.
Also,
you couldn't sleep. All you have to do.
There you have it. So that's that video ended. So what's the solution? There is none. The only way the solution is to get reparations and do what's right. Because this, from that period of time, never been resolved. But when Japan was and what happened to the people in Japan, they wrote an apology and tried to rectify it with some type of way. When the indigenous people, they try to rectify it with certain groups of indigenous people, they allowed them to happen. When it came to the other people, and that was not even happening in this country, was Jewish people. That happened over in Europe. But yet, all the nations got the retribution and helped build them up. So, and it's probably countless of other people that got retribution, but only one group of people never got retribution when it came to the laws in this land. From 1920, before 1920, and it was many massacres like this, many. Just, it's just crazy. And they want you to just let go, be past. But what people don't understand, there's a generational thing behind this. There's a generational that repair that need to be right. That really should leave it to the descendants of a slave. No one should dictate the descendants of the slaves what they should have and what they can do, especially from another ethnic group of people in this country or outside this country. But the poverty remains, and the ghost towns of America still remain. Because even though that they did that, the towns have never recuperated. Driving out the blacks. And other blacks are one of the people they drive out. But look at the economy. Did it solve anything? Did it make the town rich?
And then there's a bunch that lives down there. There's just a couple of sets.
What kind of racism have you experienced living around?
Oh man, just standing out, I guess, a little bit. But I mean, if you play sports and stuff like that, that helps out.
And bro, how are you treated living in this area?
Oh man, they've known me my whole life. People, I like you, but I don't like you enough. You can't date my daughter or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He'll probably talk to you.
Is he cool?
Yeah, he'll be alright. I told him what the holler used to be called.
No, you're hard. Growing up, I used it loosely, but I don't fully agree with it anymore. I mean, in my opinion, there can be white. Yeah, there's white and black, I guess. I feel uncomfortable saying it around him. I use the word president like somebody that's lazy and just, I don't know, useless.
What did he say? He used the N-word as lazy and useless. It's coming from a white person. When they interpret the N-word, that's what they interpret it as. Lazy and useless. But yet, they in poor West Virginia, people like this who have some of this in different towns like this throughout America, in poor towns.
If you're honest, do you feel like these people don't like you, even though they may not say it to your face?
Yeah. Sometimes.
I call a white person quicker than with a black person, you know what I mean?
I mean, you can tell, man. It's just, you can tell.
What does that term mean? It's like to you, it's like if you call it a
Man,
white...
it's just a lazy piece of shit. You know what I mean? Somebody just worthless.
Even if somebody is racist, they ain't gonna let me know that they're racist. Not period, really, because they've known me my whole life.
It felt strange. A black man in a very small town being one of very few. Would it really be possible for him to recognise racism as it happens, even when he has been around it his whole life? And an even more interesting question, if he doesn't know any other way of life, how much would it really matter to him?
Prosecutors say Megan Williams was held captive in a mesh shed and tortured for days. 6 people were arrested and charged. Williams told the Associated Press her captors stabbed her and swallowed her.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't be, because it's like when you raise up environment and and there's some black people that live in West Virginia, and there's some people that probably raise black people, white people raise black people, they indoctrinate them with that stuff. And it's just like, just don't worry about it. That's just old Henry over there. He just something like that. But you in an environment where it's less of a population than other groups of people. So they feel like they have a greater advantage in areas like this to exercise what they do. When you go into some of these small towns throughout America, they entitled to feel like this. And that's why they do so. And then they brainwash their children. And I've seen cases where under the guise of Christianity, they say that we all God's people. And, you know, not all of us ain't the same way. They always say that, but the actions tell different. With certain people, the actions tell different. And then when someone has a difference of opinion, who's of a different shade of color, then the true side of them come out. You know? So, that's what it comes down to. And it's something. But the generational curses in these little towns is because of their ignorance. And they never rectified. They never did anything that's righteousness. They never did the right thing to do. They won't do anything that's justify an equally law of making what's right. So what happens is that they just, you know, it's just another thing. You know, you're just supposed to just get over it. Get by and get over it. Stop complaining. But when something comes beyond man's way, then it's like, then it comes to the same people you have put in the caste system, the same people you have put into a subhuman condition because according to your mind and your logic, because of their skin color. Then you wonder when things happen, you're going to try to come back and see at the same people and get ideas off the same people who you did this to. And then under the guise of we all God's people. And some of them try to fall into that category. And it's almost like there's a setting like Simon says, and what I feel because of my privilege, because of what it was servitude to me due to the history of it, I can be like that. And I think when people like this think like that, that's why they feel justified in being prejudiced. And they don't think that they're wrong. They don't believe that they're not prejudiced. They can say something the most craziest thing that ever was. But it is what it is. And there are some people that can change their heart. You can't change their heart. It takes the Most High God to change their heart. To get them to see But there's some people in these towns will carry that hate. The sad thing about it is there are some people be prejudiced, like the people before them, and they will carry that to their grave, and eventually they will never enter into heaven. They will never enter into heaven because they never repent of what they did on earth, and they kept the generational bond of what they've done on earth to other people. That's the sad thing about this. And they don't even know it. And they're so ignorant. They're so blind. It's just something else. So they what they do with religion, they do it with by any means necessary. They do it through medical experiment. They do it through environment experiment. They start with all poor people, but particularly in most poor areas, they do it to the blacks. And here we have more. I'm going to show you 3 minutes of this.
The company ain't going to be out there with you while you trying to make your money and while you staying overnight at the...
Show you this in just 4 minutes. This is what kind of spirit that they've had in time.
You in the car, get out.
This is what the police kind of spirit that they carry.
Who are you? George Freeman, sir. This here is my nephew Atticus and his friend Letitia. Where y'all from? Chicago, sir. You're a long way from home. Oh, we're just passing through, taking a little bathroom breaks there is all. Any of you all know where the sundown town is? Yes, sir, we do. Well, this is the sundown county. If I had found you pissing in my woods like animals after dark, it would have been my sworn duty to hang every single one of you from them trees. It's not sundown yet? Sunset is at 7:09 today. That's 7 minutes from now. Then we'll be out of the county in 6. Now that's impossible heading south on the road you're currently on. Unless you were to speed. And if you were to speed, I'd have to pull you over. Then we'll head north. That might work. Why don't you give it a try? We will, sir. Is it legal to make a U-turn here? Aren't you a smart one? So ordinarily, I would consider a U-turn a violation. But if you ask me real nice, I might just let it go this time. Please. Or you can do better than that. Say, pretty please, will you let this smart nigga make a U-turn here? Pretty please, will you let this smart nigga make a U-turn here? All right. Just this one time, since you asked so nicely.
A lot of people are sending me videos about all the black truck drivers that are coming up missing in the South, and this is what I have to say about that. So if you're a truck driver or you're just traveling through the states, especially down south, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and so forth, you need to make yourself aware of what a sundown town is. Alright, so for those of you who don't know, a sundown town is a town that is normally somewhere in the South, where if you black like me, you are not allowed to be outside when the sun goes down. So if you get caught slipping in a sundown town, you could get lynched. They will put you in jail under a name that is not yours so your family can't find you. Some people just come up missing. Some people are found dead. And these are people that are not like us. Not necessarily the KKK, but they got their own little cliques. And they get away with that stuff. Now sometimes, and I mean sometimes, You may run into a police officer that will escort you through the sundown town, but that's if he's not one of them. So if you are a truck driver or you're just passing through, I highly advise you to Google the state that you're going through, find out where the sundown towns are, avoid them if possible. If not, make sure your gas tank is on full, have you something in the car. If you can't carry a gun, you better get a couple of knives, a set of brass knuckles, a bat, a taser, some mace, maybe all of them, because if you have to pull over or if somebody pulls you over.
Now, the question of it is, people always say that's the past, was in the movie that was in 60. But do you know that it still go on to this day? You see how things don't ever go away? This is what black people try to tell people. That things, just because we in the 21st century, 2025, you still have the people that carry the same spirit back in 1925, 35, 45, 55, 65, so on, 75, 85, 90, so on. 2025. It's a generational thing that these people still hold till this day. And then they try, and then when it's exposed, because of the economy is not coming through there. When their towns are wiped out, the economy is gone. What tourist wants to go through something like that? Tourism means money. And when you're getting tourists across the country, around the world, you want to be labeled as a town that this is what you've done, and it makes your residents, some of your residents, look bad. Your local government look bad. And when weather disasters come visit you, because the things you've done, when natural disasters hit, then you want empathy. But why you can't spare empathy when you live in small towns like this? And I showed it in the video where Clyde, North Carolina, where that truck driver was almost unalive. Before that, it was flooded out. Your white supremacy didn't stop that. Your ignorance can stop that. Your intellectual can stop it. But and it had to pay for it. All because a man or woman entitled you to treat them indignant as a human being. And the God that made us all saw what you've done and continually do what you do. See, no matter what they do, they try to erase this history. This is why America's never going to be the same. Economically, socially, because she don't want to let an area thrive. Because it has to be a totem pole effect. Racism is one of the major things that's stopping this economy. They think that they can outwit and be on top and stay on top and keep other people oppressed and down. And what they find out, because they think that all the people that look like them have all the answers without sharing knowledge from any other group of people, regardless of their education, their experience in life, what's happening is that's going to come back and smack them in the face. And you know who the people going to thrive is? The people is that bring a solution from all walks of life. Black people, different parts, other people that come from different parts of the world who wants to do this thing as a unity, not for supremacy, and try to be a totem pole. America's going to learn. She's going to learn. You can erase some things of the past, but you can't release the spirit that still lingers. And people that look like myself see or witnessing this under the hyper delusion that it's just a personal thing. When it's in your justice system, your court system, and every other factor, the people that will continue to operate like this, you will never, ever, ever achieve. You will never be blessed. You carry this spirit, to the grave, you will never join eternity. You will be in hell. That's the reality of it is. So keep the disputation of hatred and insecurity, generational superiority over people you thought was this what you were told. Watch what's going to happen. Your kids will never be blessed. And they will wonder why. Because iniquity always visit the third generation. Alright then, ladies and gentlemen, this is a message. America don't change. She's going to continually slide down because of stuff like this. See for yourself. It's going to get tough as time comes. Take care, be blessed.